I am not wearing work clothes. And there's a good reason for that. It's because I'm on my way to record a second episode of Chats With. Now, there's 3 reasons why I've started these episodes. Reason 1 is so I can introduce you to the professional side of the industry. Reason 2 is so we can talk to some juggernauts of the industry and learn how we can become better just like them. Number 3 is so we can identify some issues in the industry and see how as a community we can build together and make it better. Let's strap our seatbelt on and get on the road. Today I'll be heading up the A49 to Leominster to see Tim Benson at Oldfields Garage Services and Vehicle Hire. You know the day's going perfectly when you're about 10 miles out and your tyre blows up. Getting me sorted. 91 miles and a flat tyre later, and we're finally here. Let's go find Tim. You are the mastermind or the dictator here at Oldfields, right?
Yeah, some would say dictator.
Yeah. So how long have you been here for?
So we've been at this site for 13 years. I joined the business again probably about 14 years ago. We've been going for just over 30 years as a family business.
So did your father start it then, or was your grandfather?
Yeah, so mum and dad started the business. Yeah, we took over an old petrol station site, and they built the workshop business as on the back of the petrol station, really.
You took over from your father then, essentially?
Yeah. So when we moved here, this was a pathway really. So it was a choice of dad scaling right back, or if I wanted to be involved, he would look to move to a new site so we could be set on our way, and that's what we decided to do. And effectively, gradually passing it over responsibility. But the ultimatum effectively was, if we move to the new site, you're going to have to take responsibility for it moving forward.
You don't come from a mechanical background, do you?
No, I started, when I left school, I started working in the parts department at VW Main Agent. Did about 3 years, or just under 3 years there, and then went back to do qualifications I was ready to learn. So I did H&D and then a degree in business.
Okay, is that just straight business studies, or was it business and management?
It's business admin at Cardiff Uni, so that's just, so you do different aspects of it, but yeah, ultimately it was business administration was the degree. Got a free pass into that with going from Hereford Tech, so they opened the door up because there's links with it anyway. But yeah, I mean, my grades were good, so that got me in, and I managed to skip the first year of uni, which, good or bad, I'm not sure. It was,
It's just the party year, isn't it, the first year?
So I missed that.
Yeah.
No, that's it. Well, I think the Hereford Tech was actually affiliated to Worcester University.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to go. Well, Cardiff at the time was in the best 5 in the UK, and the opportunity to go there when it was only an hour and a half from here seemed the natural one to take, really.
Yeah. So was that Cardiff or Cardiff Met?
No, Cardiff.
Oh, so you went to proper Cardiff?
Yeah, proper one. Yeah. All the old buildings and everything.
Not just a pretty face, you. One of the clever ones. How do you feel that degree transitioned into the motor trade?
If I'm honest, I think probably it took a long time to transition the information. I think what it gave me is a really good understanding of how to operate a business, but the reality was I hadn't operated a business. And so I knew lots of little bits of business. I'd done lots of research, lots of studying, lots of theories, set up a fictional business, if you like, as part of the process. But the reality is it doesn't prepare you in full for taking that step of being involved. I mean, I was very lucky because the business was already operating, but mum and dad did okay at the business, but there was no sort of future plan and no it was very much head down and work hard, and that's how they did it, and that's how we grew the business, really.
Well, I find that with the motor trade, obviously the crux of a business is you've got a service, you sell it for a profit. That's every business works that way.
Yeah.
But I found that in the motor trade, the way that you do that is slightly different than you would in sort of the hospitality trade or something like that.
And I think a lot of the cases that we see is, generally speaking, and it's unusual to have people who from a different background operate in a workshop business or a garage business. Typically what happens is that you have a technician who is very good at the technical side, decides for family reasons, personal reasons, whatever, that they want to step into a garage, and effectively they they typically do that transition without too much planning. And the plan is really, I want to work on my own. And obviously, there's so much more to it than that.
Yes.
When you're a smaller scale or you're working on your own, you can be very nimble and very agile. So if things change, so can you very quickly. But if you want to operate a business that's growing and developing, then that's a different kettle of fish altogether. And what happens is that a lot of people fall into it, and that's something that's that's seen in lots of garages.
Let's talk about your business a little bit. We were speaking earlier, and I think it's important for people to know about pricing strategies.
Yeah, and that's an interesting topic within lots of businesses within the motor trade, and everybody's scared of putting their prices up. I say everybody, that's not strictly true, but lots of people are scared of putting their business up, putting their prices up. But I think people are so fixated on the price and the price of their neighbours, rather than thinking about what you do and how much value you provide. It's just they're two totally different things, and value is the important part. As long as you're providing value and customers see it as value, then it doesn't matter how much you charge. And I think, and you asked me a question earlier, which was, I don't think I could put my prices up, and without swearing, I said that's rubbish. But you can't. I'm not advocating everyone should just go and put all their prices up without giving it any thought. However, what you really need to think about is what are your costs, how you operate, what do you provide that's different or better than your competitors in the area.
Well, yeah, that's it. I was speaking to a group chat of boys recently, and I don't know if do you follow Andy Krug? He does his 15-minute streams.
Yeah.
He put one up about how you work out your labour rates.
Yeah.
So I shared it to this group chat, and I was like, oh, just sort yourselves out, boys, sort of thing, you know. And one of them said, well, he's overcomplicated that. Why didn't he just look at the man down the road is X, Y and Z, the man up the road is A, B and C. I don't want to be too cheap and I don't want to be too poor, so I'll go there. Nice and simple. I was like,
but it's wrong. It's completely wrong, because you're setting yourself as an average.
Yeah. And
are you average? And we're certainly not an average business. We're certainly not an average garage. So I don't want to be average in price.
No.
I want to look at our business. I want to be able to pay people well. I want to be able to make a profit, and I want to provide the best level of service. You can only do that if you charge enough money.
Well, that's it. You can't add that perceived value unless you have the income to buy that stuff that increases your value in the first place.
But I think you can make it's little increments, isn't it? It's little things that you can do. I know that we're probably about 40% higher in our labour rate, headline figure, than most of our, if you like, competitors in the area. But I would position ourselves differently. So if I'm considering independent garages as a competitor, to be honest, they're probably not. My competitor is a main dealer.
Right, okay, yeah.
And that instantly elevates your growth for pricing, because main dealers are on 120, 140, 160 pounds an hour. Yeah. And if they're 160 pounds an hour and I'm charging 80 pounds an hour, I'm cheap, aren't I?
Well, yeah. That's right, yeah. But I was talking to somebody recently, and they were trying to say to me that an independent shouldn't be charging anywhere near as much as a main dealer is for the same service, because a car that's got full dealer history will sell for more than a car that's got a full independent history.
Is that true?
I don't know.
Because I can tell you one thing, I wouldn't pay more for a car with service history from a dealer, and if you're selling a car to a dealer, they won't pay more for it.
Oh, won't they?
No.
Okay.
So they might add this bit of provenance, if you like, in terms of when they're giving you the spiel of purchasing a car, but I personally don't think it makes any difference. What they actually look for, and what customers actually look for when you're buying a car, is has it got good history, has it been well looked after, has it been maintained, and there's more than one way you can show that. Servicing through a main dealer isn't the be all and end all.
No. How do you determine that? So you've obviously got your overheads.
Yeah.
And then you've got a profit percentage on top.
Yeah, so what we look at really is, so you obviously need to look at your overheads, so your fixed costs, what are they per month, but you've also got to factor in on top of that is what do you want to do with the business? What do you want to be able to spend on charity? What do you want to spend on marketing? What do you want to spend on development and investment. You know, are there any things that you want to do with a business in terms of presentation that's going to cost money? So all these factors need to be built in to your labour rates, because if you can't cover the cost of a £10,000 refresh of the reception, then you haven't made enough money to be able to do that. So you've got to think about all these things and make a plan for what you want to do. But ultimately, our business is funding, you know, the employees that work here. So our team are benefiting from what we charge out. Our facilities, I think, you know, you've been around our facilities, we've shown you what we've got, and I think it's pretty good.
It's one of the cleanest workshops I've been in, to be honest.
Yeah, and that costs nothing though, which is really strange, isn't it? Because that particular bit costs nothing. The bit of keeping it tidy.
No, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So you don't. It looks like you employ somebody designated just to sweep the floor.
Absolutely not.
No.
In fact, I was sweeping the floor this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I knew that. I just wanted to compliment you.
Yeah. But you know, so you know, taking that aside, but we've also got, you know, my family need to be able to be supported by the business. Mum and dad are still financially involved in the business, so they need to be able to. So again, you just can't do it unless you charge enough money. But the key thing really is trying to get that message over to customers, and that can be through lots of ways. Some subtleties that I think we project, if you like. So when you walk into our reception, you know, it's clean and tidy. There's stuff there, so you can get a drink from the fridge, you can get a cup of coffee, you can sit down on our nice leather sofas, you can you know, get access to the Wi-Fi. When the reception counters, the reception desks, they're oak topped. I think it helps to project that level of quality. And ultimately I think what it does is it creates an expectation that it's not going to be cheap when you come in. But it also creates an expectation, like, you know, that we need to deliver now. And that's the overall thing. Yeah.
So what the sort of the front of house is doing is adding that perceived value that the customer is going to be getting a good service.
Absolutely.
So how do you gauge that financially? So obviously, if your car broke, I would be of no value to you because you've got techs that can fix it for you. So you're not going to hire me to do it.
No.
But if you're on your way down to the other side of the country and you get a blowout, you're going to pay somebody to come and rescue you. Yeah. That obviously that value of that service has dramatically increased.
Yeah. I think actually we project, you know, everything that you do builds your value within the business, and that's, you know, from the interactions electronically and digitally, you know, so reminding customers, asking them for feedback after a job's been done. You know, are we seen in the local community, which is a big thing for me, making sure that we participate. You know, we support the local rugby club. We're the main sponsors for the female rugby team this year. We've got, you know, Leominster in Bloom, which we support. The local charities we always try and support. The local schools, you look after them minibuses. It all adds perceived value, and there's a knock-on effect. You know, if we're involved and we're seen to be doing these things to a good cause, you know, people understand that that's part of our business ethos, and that's you know, all part of the picture that we're forming with customers.
What's great about that as well is that if you're seen in the community, it separates you from the main dealer, and all of a sudden you become part of the community. So by using you, they're supporting the community.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we've all seen the adverts that get shared around on Facebook and various things. You know, if you buy off, you know, a local business, you're not paying for a yacht for a multi-million-pound corporate. I mean, you know, I live in the real world, and you can't get away from corporate and big organisations, because, to be honest, it'd be hard to survive generally. However, you know, the principle is right. You know, people, if you've got somebody wanting a PTA raffle prize or something like that, you're affecting the community and the people within the community. And relatively speaking, it's quite cheap.
Oh yeah, for what you get in return. It's worth the investment.
Yeah.
But you also hire vans as well, don't you?
Yeah.
Do you think the modern garage can survive without doing an add-on like that? So hiring, selling cars, maybe got a valeting bay or something?
Yeah, I absolutely do actually. I think so. Our business, so we don't run it as a separate business. We run hire as an add-on to what we do, and I can tell you exactly why that is, because I don't want to turn it into a business at this stage. I mean, we're the only people in our area who offer hire. So that was my opportunity, and that's why it became a nice little add-on. We can look after the vehicles. I understand the technical side in terms of the insurances and stuff like that, so that made that bit not too difficult to do. We only run a small fleet, 8 vehicles, but if I go another 8 vehicles, I then got to start putting a proper resource into it and probably thinking about premises and all those things. And at the moment, it's perfectly okay as we are. You know, it ticks along quite nicely. It's not a business in its own right, but it adds and contributes to everything else that we do.
Yeah. Something that I'm quite passionate about, and that's what my social media is for, is, so when I started, sort of backyard garage, filthy, dirty.
Typical backstreet impression.
Yeah. And then I found I started doing social media, then I went to the body garage and body shop event last year. Yeah. And then I went to the Top Deck and found that there's this massive professional side of the industry where people come to come to work wearing shirts. Yeah. And it's a huge different side of the industry. So my social media is trying to aim that we are not this dirty, scruffy industry, but we're quite this professional industry. What do you think some of the best ways to do that to get more apprentices into the industry?
I think it's it's going to take a long time for that to develop, but I think there's a lot of really good stuff happening at the moment. I think one of the questions that gets asked in social media is, would you encourage your children to go into this industry? I would personally, because I think it's there is, if you mix in the right areas, shall we say, there's so much you can gain from it. Obviously, we try and be amongst the best garages in the UK. Our award finals and so on would suggest that we're in that right area. And there's lots of stuff that you can do with it, but from an apprentice point of view, it's difficult because there's still a perception within schools that if you're really clever, you go and be a lawyer or a doctor or a whatever, and if you're good with your hands, you become a technician. Well, no, sorry, you become a mechanic. Yeah. And that's the difference between the two things. I think that aspiring to be technicians, it's going to be a challenge, but you've got to give people a chance. You've got to give people that sort of step into it. There's lots of people with interest in cars. Yeah. It's just whether that can be made into a career is the thing that we've got to convince them. And I think the other misconception is that you think, well, do you want to be in a motor trade? Well, you instantly think about mechanic or technician. There's so many more roles within it. I mean, just looking at our small business, we've got 2 people in customer service front of house roles. You can operate a business like I do. There's loads of, there's valeting, there's all these different areas that people can move into. And it's, generally speaking, a very supportive industry. There's lots of collaboration, there's lots of people working together, and you don't get that in certain areas. Yeah, no, it's brilliant. It is brilliant.
So do you think the issue stems further down than just public perception? Do you think wage does play a role in it as well?
Absolutely. I mean, wage and pay has been a big challenge for this sector. But again, I think you're finding that garages now that are trying to be good and trying to be the best realise that actually we need to start paying decent money, and you need to start providing training and nice facilities so you can actually see that there's a nice environment to work in. But pay is definitely important. It's not the only thing that's important. I think actually environment is as important as anything else, and the chance to grow and to learn and to develop, which you can only get through access to training and conferences and all those sorts of things.
Yeah, well, I actually had a guy message me because he wanted to go on his own as mobile, and he's finally done it. He's got a loan, he's bought his van, he's bought his tools, he's given his full-time job, and he's going to take it over in the evenings and on the weekends. And he said that his garage that he works for just isn't putting him to training, and he wants to go forward and learn more things, but he's not being trained. So one of the main reasons he's gone on his own is so he can get access to those courses.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a letdown really on the garage's part.
It definitely, and I think it depends on whether you're sort of happy and content to stay as a traditional type garage, which hasn't got the best reputation and perception is not great, or whether you want to look forward and think, we've got so many great opportunities coming. We're talking about vehicles being hybrid, we're talking about electric vehicles, we're talking about technology on these vehicles now which is so quickly advancing that unless you've got some training and access to it, you can't do it. You can't do those sorts of jobs, so you are going to end up falling further and further back. And I think over the next 10 years you're probably going to find that there will be garages closing down because of the idea that I don't want to be working on electric vehicles. But
for sure that is, yeah.
But in reality, those electric vehicles are not coming that quickly. I mean, yes, if you look at certain stats, you can see that it's the biggest take up, the biggest blah blah blah. However, if you look at the actual facts, and James Dillon brought it to Automechanica, how many electric vehicles are there going to be in 3 years? I think he said it's going to be something like 1.25 million of a 60 million pool. It's nothing, is it? So it's a drop in the ocean.
Yeah. Front with a tech and with training, how do I word it? Would you, if two people applied for a job, one of them's been working on the tools say for 22 years, but he hasn't got any qualifications and he hasn't kept up with his training, and then somebody comes, say, got 10-15 years experience but they're up to date with their training, which one would you be more likely to?
The person who's up to date with their training. But I think it's more about the attitude to wanting to do it.
Okay.
So history is history, isn't it? It's gone, maybe that 20-year experienced tech has never had the chance and never had the opportunity to do it. We would give them that chance. Even our apprentice has just been to the workshop takeover day down in Cheltenham at Auto Technician. I put it to the group, anybody want to do this? We fund it and give them a day off in lieu for their working on a Saturday. And so 2 people wanted to do it, and one of those was the apprentice, and it absolutely made sense. And again, he's benefiting from the opportunity to learn at a time when he's learning. That's.
What do you think is the biggest issue that we're facing as an industry right now?
I think the same as everybody, to be honest. It's the idea of recruiting technicians from a pool that isn't there. Okay. But it isn't just a garage issue. It's a nationwide issue with skills, and the problem is that money is one aspect. So people are looking for what jobs are going to pay me the most. So that's the direction they're going to go in if they're driven in that way. But there isn't, there's people are not putting apprentices on their books, and they're not taking on and giving those opportunities. So what will happen is in 3 years' time, when they're qualified, there won't be any people to come, the next stage of technicians coming through. The problem is the cycle has to continue. You need to bring apprentices in, because if you don't bring apprentices in, you don't get 3 or 4 year qualified techs. If you don't get those, you've not got people looking to go into the longer term. So recruitment is a challenge, and largely as an industry we brought that on ourselves, because we haven't been prepared to pay reasonable money, and provide reasonable facilities and provide reasonable training opportunities. And it's a spiral. But I think it feels to me, and this is a bit anecdotal, but it feels like things are changing.
I think so.
And I think you see lots of good work going on with some of the organisations specialising in recruitment and development and training. They're doing lots of things which are having positive impacts. Going and speaking to colleges. I went into Hereford Tech College they had an open day for recruitment, and this was like young people wanting to move from their college course into full-time, and from their college course into part-time to work and go part-time college.
Okay.
And I was the only person at the only garage that went. into that environment. And it wasn't just garages, obviously it was people looking, but that tells me that we're, as a local area, not taking it seriously enough. Potentially there was a pool. I had the opportunity to talk to 10 or 15 young people that are looking to go from their college course into something else. So I had an opportunity to say, well, why don't you come with me? Or why don't you do this? I mean, at this moment in time, we're not looking to recruit because we've already got an apprentice anyway. Yeah. But certainly, if you don't put your face and you don't put your business in those places, then you're never going to get that opportunity.
So do you think that issue there is, you mentioned earlier about good techs becoming business owners, and do you think that a combination between that and them not having the business training to understand how much they should charge people, meaning that they're working twice the amount of hours that they have to, so they haven't actually got the time to go to those events?
I'm sure of it, yeah. I'm sure that has an impact. But there are, again, there's lots of training available on the business side through various different routes. There's not enough, because there needs to be more access to this information, and there needs to be more people providing consultancy and assistance to help some of these businesses along. But it's there's definitely something that people need to think about as part of their process for growing a business. And we all know, I need to look back at our business history. It was very much a case of head down and work really hard, and that's a typical pattern. That's not abnormal.
No, it's not.
And probably because I'm not a technician, I can't do that bit. So I need to look at the whole picture and see, like, how can we do that bit better.
So I had, I don't know if you've seen it, I recently put up a post based off of Alex Linley's comment about the industry starting to value itself.
Yeah.
And a young lad commented on there saying that he's an apprentice, but he doesn't get paid enough at work to sustain his life, so he does hobbles on the side. So he fits brakes for like £15 or something like that. And then somebody commented on there, which I thought was a bit ruthless, and was like, you are the reason why the industry's in the state it is. Which I thought was a little bit harsh, but at the same time, did they have a point? It's probably harsh on that person as an individual. However, it's absolutely correct. Yeah.
When you look at people outside of work, and I would hazard a guess that they're not paying for any taxes, and they're not paying for any insurances, and they're not paying for any things like that. So the person that commented is absolutely right in that instance. Unless of course they are doing all those things that So there's so much of a problem. But I mean, stepping aside from individuals doing work outside of work, we've got that problem in garages. They're not charging enough to be able to develop their business, and we've all seen posts that say, well, my overheads are only this, and I make good money doing it this way. But that's absolutely true. But what they're not doing is they're not valuing what they can do and what they can achieve.
That's right.
And that's a big deal. That is a big problem. And unfortunately, if you don't pay technicians enough money, they need, and it's not a case of wanting, they need to do work outside of work, and that can have a negative impact on work, because they can be doing work for cheap, effectively. And then the knock-on effect of that is that they're tired when they come into work, so they don't work as well for you. So there's so many things that are within that sort of sphere. It's too complex to pin it down to one little bit, but it's definitely a contributor. And valuing what you do. Let's be honest. So I'm not a technician, but as a technician, which you are, you need to be part electrician, part plumber, part mechanical engineer, part diagnostic person, depending on the sorts of jobs you're doing. So it's a tough job. It's a tough job to work in, and then to factor into that the technology changes that are happening all the time. So you might be really good at all of those things individually, but in a year's time it's completely different to it was a year ago. Yeah,
and then you've got the bills for the tools to keep up on top with that as well. And
Yeah.
Do you think, so obviously I'm self-employed.
Yeah.
You don't provide your mechanics with tools, do you?
We don't know.
No.
No. Well, not with our hand tools.
Basic hand tools, no.
Yeah.
So as a self-employed person who provides my own hand tools, can I justifiably charge the customer more just because I'm using a snap-on ratchet?
I'd look at it a slightly different way. Can you justify spending money on a snap-on ratchet if you're not charging enough?
That's a good question.
Yeah. And either way, the point is that I don't think you can charge more for using a snap-on ratchet because the tool is only the facilitator, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So the tool is the bit that enables you to do the job. The ability and the brain power and all the other bits that go with it, the technical information, are the bits that enable that job to be completed. The tool is part of it.
Yeah.
But I would hope that as part of your labour charges, you factor in what you need to spend to stay abreast or on top of what's going on.
Yeah. So I charge more per hour, shall we say?
Yeah.
Just for simplicity, for diagnostics than I do for if I was going to change somebody's brakes.
Yeah.
Simply because the tooling involved in doing the diagnostics is considerably more expensive than a set of spanners.
Yeah.
That's okay, right?
Yeah. I mean, we don't have a fixed labour rate with our business.
No.
So we charge on a job basis, and there's so many factors that affect that. It's technicality of the vehicle, brand, what type of job we're doing. Does it require any specialist information, knowledge, tools, or whatever? We factor that in. So we work on what I call an average labour rate, and that's an average based on everything that we do, and that's bearing in mind that MOTs are 54.85, so that's substantially lower than our labour rate if you have an MOT as an hour. We absolutely do the same. We charge different rates based on the type of job it is, because again, there's different skill sets in the workshop, and people that have got different skill sets, require different levels. Yeah, and I'll put it in slightly. To give you a little bit of context of that, it's a bit like in a hairdresser, you can go and have your haircut with a junior where they're learning, and that's being supervised or whatever, and that's this rate, and then you go to the salon and you see a senior hairdresser and there's a different rate for that person. It's the same job, but a different rate because there's a different skill set and so on that's part of it.
Oh, okay. So do you do that with your techs then, do you? So if one of your techs was working on a car, you charge more for that job than another tech?
No, we do it based on the type of job.
Right, okay.
Obviously, certain techs can do certain types of jobs.
Right, okay.
So indirectly, yes, but not directly, no.
Okay, so you're not charging more for the tech, you're charging more for the skills required to do that job?
Yeah, absolutely.
It just happens that tech has those skills?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sum it up, the thing that's going to fix the industry the best is if garage owners start to realise what they're worth.
Absolutely.
And start charging more.
Yeah, it's understanding their value. That's the thing, and I'm absolutely not advocating people just go and willy-nilly put their prices up, because unless you can justify and create a perception with the customer that that's what it's worth, you're going to end up losing all your customers.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that people shouldn't be scared of it, and I always say to people when I'm talking about labour rates particularly, is that if you have a whole job and your average job, should we say, is 2.5 hours, and you put your labour rate up by £10 an hour, you're talking of 25 quid on the job plus VAT in most cases.
Yeah.
What difference is that going to make?
No, absolutely nothing.
Nothing. And people are saying, I can go up by £1 or £2 or whatever. I'm like, just do that. What is your average job time? And if it's 2.5 hours and you put your labour rate up by £10 an hour, the whole job is £25.
Yeah.
It's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I put up a post on it the other day, and about if your customer thinks that you're at £35 an hour, you're good value for money.
Yeah.
That's either because they think that you deserve to be paid more, so £35 is good, or they think that you're only worth £35, so they're right paying it. But if they think you're worth more, if you put it up to £45 an hour, they probably won't notice because they'll still feel like they're getting value.
Yeah, and so So we use Garage Hive as our management system, and every single job that we do, the customer gets a text and an email saying, how do we do effectively? And of our customers at our higher rate within our local area, our customers say that we are above average and higher. As a rule, you know, the odd exception, of course. Some revenge reviews, as I call them. But you know, ultimately, that's our customer feedback, is that we're above average, or we're excellent value for money. So I could easily argue that we're too cheap then. Because we should be average.
Yeah.
You know, when you're talking about pricing, you should be average.
Yeah.
You know, why? You know, if you're below average, then you're not doing something right. If you're above average, then you're not charging enough. Really.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. The customer obviously thought that you were worth more than the 10 grand you charged them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to wrap it up there. It was nice to chat with you.
Yeah. Cheers, Elliot. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.